Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and this is Top 5s, the only top 5 show in snowboarding that you watch to see which boards are going to grease those rails the best. On today's episode we're going to be talking about the top 5 jib boards for the 24-25 season. Number 5, the Bataleon Wallie. This board is camber dominant, but don't let that fool you. It might be the softest, if not the softest in the Battalion line, where you have a lot of 3BT in the nose and in the tail. So what that does is that's gonna shrink up your contact points actually. So it's super easy to maneuver and super catch free. So when you're approaching those rails, it's really easy to micro adjust, just so it gives you the best chance of making it on and staying on that rail. Now you can really press on this thing without really even trying. Just a slight lean back, shift those hips, and that nose is gonna pop up and your tail pressing with ease. Same with on the nose as well, just kind of shift those hips forward and your tail and your nose pressing with ease on that. It's a nice soft board, even when you do land right in between your feet. Since you do have that camber, it cradles the rail really well, and honestly it's just effortless. It's almost one of those cheater boards when it comes to jibbing, just because of how soft it is and how much you can actually torque this thing around. Number 4, the general public. No, I did not have an aneurysm. That is the name of this board. Sorry, Joe. Change that maybe or something. But this board is awesome. Regardless of the name, this thing rocks. It is camber dominant with rocker on the nose and the tail. Don't let that fool you. It's still coming in at softer than the middle of the road, but that rocker on the nose and tail are gonna help so much when it comes to presses and buttering and just anything that has to do with just standing on the nose or the tail. It creates a huge sweet spot, so when you do get on that rail and you shift your weight back, that is where you're gonna lock in and it's gonna hold. It's gonna hold till the end of that rail, till you wanna be done with it. And then it's gonna provide a nice little pop out because of that camber in between your feet. So it allows you to be able to spin out of those rails as well. Now, when you slide it in between your feet, it holds really well for you. So wherever you land is pretty much where it's gonna sit. It didn't really feel like it really wanted to spring off the rail or anything like that. Just nice and mellow. This board is also gonna have urethane sidewalls on it. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna give you a little bit more impact protection than if you were to just have a standard P-Tech sidewall. It has a little bit of give to it instead of being super rigid. So if you need something with a little bit more durability, this might be a great option for you. Number 3, the Roam Artifact Pro. Don't let the Pro in the name fool you. This board is still coming in at softer than the middle of the road. The only reason it is the Pro version is because it does have a higher centered base on it, meaning this board is gonna be faster. If you like to take rails with speed, go a little bigger, gap to the end of the rail, this would be a great option for you. This board has a super fast base to it. Also is gonna be a little bit more durable, so as long as you keep this thing waxed, it's gonna hold up to the wear and tear of those rails. Now, when you do slide it in between your feet, it is gonna be soft, so you're gonna feel yourself land on that rail and this thing compress around the rail. Don't let that scare you, because it feels nice and stable. As long as you keep your feet nice and balanced on there, it doesn't want to wander too much on you. This board does have a really good pop to it, even though it is going to be softer. So with those rods in the nose and the tail, it provides a little bit more spring. So when you need to gap to it, you got it covered. You don't really have to worry about popping your living heart out. It'll help you with that just a little bit. Remember to like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our scheduled programming. And the number 2 is the K2 World Peace. This board is a successor to the Worldwide Weapon, but it got a few upgrades to it. So this one is gonna have a full center base on it, meaning it's nice and fast. So when you are approaching those rails, it makes it a little bit easier to gap to the end. Now, it is gonna have a camber dominant profile, as everything else on the list has so far, with a little rocker in the nose and the tail. That's just gonna make it so when you are approaching the rail, it will release for you and it doesn't get super hooky or catchy, anything like that. Now, this board is coming in at softer than the middle of the road, so you don't really have to worry about being super aggressive or anything like that. When you do land on the rail sideways, whether that be a front board, back board, whatever you want to do, it does cradle it extremely well, where it doesn't load up all that energy from the camber and spring you off. It just pretty much lands and just dies right on that rail, so you don't have to worry about getting a little bit spicy or anything. This board is really easy to press on, where right where that rocker meets the camber, you can just hold it. And really, on this one, you might have to lean back a little bit more than the previous boards, but it just keeps you honest, and it really just loads up for that exit on it. So if you want to spin out of those rails or ledges, it's not a problem on this thing at all. Honorable mentions. Remember, these are all great options for jib boards. They just weren't our favorite and they weren't able to crack our top 5. The first is the Salomon Sleepwalker. This board is going to have a flatter camber profile to it, but still have that camber with rocker on the nose and the tail. So it's going to be the best of pretty much all worlds, where it's not a super aggressive camber. So when you do lock it locks in right there, but it also is going to have that pop of a camber board, but the playfulness of a flat deck, where it's just not going to be super aggressive, not going to pop out of your shorts or anything like that. Just a great all-around jib board. The second option would be the Capita Ultrafear. This board is going to have camber on it now. From when it first was made, it used to have rocker on it, so they upgraded a little bit, gave it a little bit more snap to it, but still a super awesome board where you're going to have rocker in the nose and the tail, but this thing is still going to be soft. It's not going to be like a soft piece of butter, but you're still going to be able to press into this, lean into it any which way, and really steeze out those jibs. And the final honorable mention is going to be the Gnu Finest. This board is going to be super precise when you're coming up to rails, almost feel a little edgy if you're not used to it, just because it does have an asymmetrical heel cut on it. So the heel edge is different than the toe side edge, so keep that in mind. But overall, still going to be a softer board, going to have that C2 profile where you're going to have camber underneath your feet with rocker in the middle and a slight rocker on the nose and the tail. That's going to help you torsionally flex that thing, so when you are coming up to rails, makes it nice and easy to approach. And when you do lock it in underneath your front foot or your back foot, it just wants to hold right there on those sideways slides. Remember, these are all great options. They just weren't able to crack our top 5. If you're looking for another way to get involved in the Angry Snowboarder community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. And the number 1 jib board for the 2025 season is the Ride Kink. Now, I know that's not a surprise to you because of how Jed Anderson rides this thing. He's amazing on the rails, and this board reflects that. So this year they did add a slim wall to it, so this thing turns on a dime with ease. You really don't have to work too hard to get it on edge to get up to that rail or micro adjust when you're going on the rail. I also really like how they did keep that camber profile to it with a little bit of rocker on the nose and on the tail, just to help with pressing and all of that. Little fun fact about this board, Ride made 10 different versions of this thing, sent them all to Jed. He thought they were all the same board because they all had the same graphic and everything, and he was just like, okay, I'll take this one, give the other 9 to my friends, and this is the one they came out with. So honestly, that's great luck because this board turned out really awesome. And I mean, Jed knows how to make a snowboard. He knows what he likes, and this board is it. This is a great jib board. If you just need that jib board to do everything, this is the one. As always, guys, I've been your host, TC, and this has been the top 5 for best jib boards of the 2025 season. If this doesn't sound like the list for you, why don't you go check out one of the other lists we have for park boards, because I'm sure you could find something that's tailored towards your needs.